She was just another passenger in the crowd until they told her to move. What no one on that flight knew was that the black woman they dismissed wasn't just any traveler. She owned the entire airline. What happened next changed lives, ruined careers, and exposed the harsh truths hiding in plain sight. You won't believe how deep this story goes. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe so you never miss these powerful stories where the underestimated rise, the proud fall, and karma comes faster than takeoff. Ava Green had spent her life proving people wrong. As the youngest self-made black woman billionaire in America, she had built her empire from the ground up, starting with a small fleet of charter jets and eventually acquiring one of the country's largest struggling airlines, Skylux Air. She had purchased the company quietly, not wanting the media circus that typically followed her moves. To most, Skylux was just another airline, but to Ava, it was a symbol of opportunity, a place where customer respect and fairness would be company pillars. It was supposed to be a routine flight from New York to San Francisco. Ava, dressed in simple jeans, a white blouse and sneakers, had purposefully booked herself in an economy seat at the back of the plane to anonymously inspect the customer experience. She wanted to see how the passengers were treated without the filter of boardroom presentations or fake smiles. She was seated quietly, listening to music when a flight attendant named Megan approached, her face tight with manufactured courtesy. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to move," Megan said, barely concealing her impatience. Ava removed her headphones. "I'm sorry?" "That's our policy. We're relocating some passengers for balance." Ava, who knew airline regulations better than most, knew this wasn't true. She glanced at the rows. The plane wasn't even close to full. "I prefer to keep my seat, thank you," Ava said calmly. But Megan pressed on, growing ruder by the second. "Look, you're not exactly a platinum member, and we need this row for someone else." Ava caught the glance Megan shot toward a white man in expensive-looking suit. Megan's bias was clear. "You didn't ask anyone else to move," Ava said quietly, her voice steady but now tinged with something Megan didn't quite notice: authority. "Ma'am, I don't have time to argue," Megan snapped, drawing the attention of nearby passengers. "Either you move or I'll have you escorted off the flight." A few people chuckled under their breath. Others looked away, uncomfortable. Ava remained seated, her arms folded. "Call the captain," Ava said, her tone calm but final. Megan's eyes narrowed, mistaking Ava's composure for compliance. She stomped to the front of the plane, calling the captain on the intercom, muttering about unruly passengers. What Megan didn't know was that the captain had just received his morning briefing directly from Ava's corporate office. And Ava's picture was on the front page of the new employee handbook as the owner of Skylux Air. When the captain walked back to see who the disturbance was, his face drained of color. "Miss Green," he said, his voice trembling. "Is there a problem?" Megan's smirk vanished as she turned sharply to the captain. "You know her?" "She owns this airline," the captain said, his voice low, his eyes wide. Silence fell over the cabin like a sudden storm. Megan stumbled over her words, trying to backtrack, but Ava's eyes were on her, unwavering. "So tell me again," Ava said, her voice like velvet over steel, "why I should move from this seat." The surrounding passengers, some who had laughed or ignored her moments before, now stared in shock, guilt creeping into their faces. The man who had been eyeing Ava's seat stood up abruptly, pretending to stretch, hoping to detach himself from the situation. The captain apologized profusely, offering to reseat Ava in first class, but Ava politely declined. "I chose this seat on purpose," she said. "I wanted to experience my airline the way most passengers do." The captain understood immediately. He turned to Megan, his face firm. "You will sit in the jump seat for the remainder of this flight. Miss Green will remain exactly where she is." Megan's jaw clenched, but she complied. Ava could have ended it there, but instead, she quietly made a call from her phone to her legal team and her head of human resources. She wanted the incident documented, not erased. She didn't want a superficial apology. She wanted systemic change. The man in the suit, sensing his own involvement might come to light, approached Ava awkwardly. "I didn't mean to cause any trouble. I didn't ask her to move you, really." Ava looked at him, unimpressed. "But you didn't tell her to stop either. Silence is a choice." The rest of the flight was tense, but Ava remained unbothered, calmly jotting down notes, smiling softly as the cabin's energy shifted from entitled dismissal to quiet reverence. But the real turbulence was waiting on the ground. Asterisk. As soon as the plane landed in San Francisco, Megan was summoned by airline officials. Unbeknownst to her, the video of the incident, captured by multiple passengers, had already begun to circulate online. The story was quickly picked up by major news outlets. Black woman ordered to move on plane turns. Out she owns the airline. Megan was immediately suspended pending investigation, but Ava didn't stop there. She ordered a full review of Skylux's employee training, hiring practices, and promotion pipelines. She held an emergency press conference the following day, not to shame Megan specifically, but to expose the deeper, systemic biases that had crept into the company's culture long before Ava had purchased it. "This is not about one employee," Ava said to the flashing cameras. "This is about the subtle ways that discrimination hides in uniforms and policies, in seating charts and service priorities. That ends today." The airline stock dipped, briefly due to the controversy, but rebounded sharply as Ava's bold leadership drew praise worldwide. She became a symbol not just of corporate power but of personal dignity. Meanwhile, Megan's union representatives tried to paint her as a scapegoat, but the weight of her own words, caught on video, made public sympathy hard to come by. Still, Ava chose not to press charges. Instead, she extended an invitation. Megan could either face termination or enroll in an intensive diversity, equity, and leadership training program, a program Ava personally designed. To everyone's shock, Megan chose the program. Asterisk. The story could have ended there, with Megan disgraced, Ava victorious, and the public moved on to the next viral headline. But Ava believed in second chances. Over the following months, she quietly mentored Megan, not to be friends, but to rebuild understanding. Megan's transformation was slow, uncomfortable, but real. She began speaking at workshops, not as a corporate pawn, but as someone who had witnessed her own blind spots and worked to correct them. Skylux Air became the gold standard for equity in customer service, pioneering policies that were soon adopted by other airlines. Ava's approach, compassion without compromising accountability, became the subject of business case studies around the world. Years later, on another Skylux flight, Megan, now a lead trainer in the airline, introduced herself to a new batch of flight attendants. She told them the story of the day she almost lost everything because she couldn't see beyond her own assumptions. And then she said, "Call the captain," Megan recalled, smiling softly. "And my entire life changed." Ava, seated quietly in the back of the room, simply nodded, her mission far from over. There were still other planes to board, other seats to defend, and other silent battles to win. Because sometimes, power doesn't need to announce itself. It just needs to refuse to move. Make sure you subscribe for more stories where the underestimated rise, justice takes off, and the flight path always leads to unexpected destinations. Your seat is waiting.